Today we come to Joshua chapter 8, and the purpose of this site is not to garner a great number of people. It's not to entertain you, but it's what we call to disciple you, to teach you how to study the Word of God so that you can hear the voice of God, so that no matter where you are, you can have a worship experience and you don't have to have all the fluff and all the apparel that we have so many times in the church. That sometimes ends up being a barrier between you and God. So this is a personal walk with God. And we're in Joshua chapter 8 today. Now listen very carefully because I'm covering a lot. Joshua chapter 8 and Joshua chapter 7, by the way, they were not separated in the original text. There were not verses, there were not chapters. That was added much later. And as a result of that, we sometimes have things broken up when they don't need to be broken up. So Joshua chapter 7, Joshua chapter 8 go hand in hand. And the children of Israel have come into the promised land. We know about that. And they have run into a great barrier. They've been defeated at Ai. And as a result of that, they've had a great problem. And so God is saying, all right, this is what I want you to do. I want you to find out who took the devoted things, and it was a guy by the name of Achan. And then I want you to have a trial for him, and I want you to eliminate him out of the possibility of being a part of the congregation of God. Now, for you, those of you who want to have a tribunal and by the way, start judging people, be careful with that. Make sure that if you start pointing fingers, you're not guilty of the same thing or something even more grievous. And so it's a very short step between great victory and great defeat. It just takes one little turn, and as a result of that, you're in all kinds of trouble. In other words, many times we make a decision, instantaneous decision today that will last maybe 3 seconds, that you'll have 3 or 4 days, or maybe a week, or 4 more weeks to regret, and then a lifetime to regret, not only regret, but to suffer from that ill-fated decision. So the problem here was materialism. Achan took the devoted things. God said, don't take all that stuff, but give it to the Lord. In other words, it belonged to God, who was going to share it with everybody. So no one went in and got everything, but everybody got something. Everybody got a house, everybody got some land. And by the way, this is just a part of the land of Israel. We can't hoard that while we take care of this group of people and leave these people out. We've got to take care of everybody a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time, so everybody can enjoy the prosperity of God. So we have this where he refused to realize that Achan refused to realize that God is in control and Jesus is Lord. And so as a result, he had the same attitude that Satan had. And we're going to come back to this. Satan, who is the father of all lies, the father of all sin, what was his great sin? Look at me, look at who I am, look at what I've accomplished, look at what I have, look at me. And then ultimately he says, I am God and I deserve to be worshiped. But God takes sin seriously. I want you to look at your sin and my sin. Now, none of us are perfect. We've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. But there's no such thing as a little sin and a big sin as far as God is concerned. They all have catastrophic, eternal consequences. So what does sin cost God? Well, look at what happened to Jesus Christ. Sin caused Jesus Christ, the Son of God, to be put on a trial, to be brutally beaten, to be humiliated, to die on a cross, caused all of that. As a result of that, God says, you know how you feel if that were your son? Well, that's how I feel about your sin. I hate, I abhor your sin. I love you, but I hate sin because it causes suffering not only to you, but to me and to everyone around you. So here Achan took of those things that belonged to everybody else. You see, God was saying he was dissatisfied. He wanted all that he had, plus he wanted all you had, and then he wanted to have all that everybody else had. Does it remind you of anybody that you know? Get all you can all you get, and set on the rest. All he took, you say, well, okay, but God didn't overlook it. He took 2 Babylonian garments. That means he took the finest of the fine. 200 pieces of silver. Well, that's quite a bit. In our economy, that'd be quite a bit. In their economy, that was a lot. And then a bar of gold. That was amazing. He probably took what, $150,000, $200,000 worth of stuff, because it all belonged to God. Now, we have this great debate in America today that is nothing more than Marxism. And remember that the Marxists, they said, well, we're going to come in, we're going to take all this stuff from the czar, we're going to take all this stuff from the rich people, and then we're going to distribute it to everybody. But from somewhere, from taking it away from the czar, it never got to the people. In fact, the people that killed the czar of Russia killed the farmers in Ukraine. This is not the first time this has happened, by the way. Killed the farmers in Ukraine by the millions who would not give up their farms. So anything that man comes up with in a political arena today, it means I'm going to take all that you have in order to keep it for myself. So they wanted all the power, they wanted all the glory, they wanted all the wealth, they wanted all the land, and then anybody that didn't give up theirs that they couldn't control, they killed. So remember, God does not want that to happen. And that's not just for the Russians and for the communists. That happened in Germany with the Nazis. That happened with the French aristocrats in France. That happened in India when the rulers came into India. The Chinese have done that, and it's all part of that. Now remember, we're talking about Joshua chapter 8, and we're talking about the consequences of sin, and we're talking about the person who causes all sin, who is Satan. He's the author and the finisher of all sin. But we go along with him. So when you sin, when I sin, when any of us sin against God, we all get hurt. Everybody gets hurt. And sin has a contagious effect. It spreads. It's not just an individual thing. It spreads to this person and that person. Now, the interesting thing about this, I don't know if you can hear it right now, but I am doing this from my home. And when I got ready to read this just a while ago, then something happened. There was a lawnmower came by, and we had to re-record it. It's no accident. Satan does not want you to hear this. Satan wants to interrupt you. So if you get interrupted sometimes during this, or if you're thinking about this, just listen very carefully. In fact, you might still be able to hear the lawnmower in the background, but I'm just letting you know that it's everyday stuff that keeps you away from God. So listen very carefully. This is the Bible. This is a description of Satan himself. How are you fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn? How are you cut down to the ground? You who laid the nations low, you said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven above the stars of God. I will set my throne on high. I will set on the mountain of assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will. Are you listening to this? I will. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. I will be like God. I will be God. But you are brought down to Sheol. It didn't happen that way. God brought him down to hell itself, to the far reaches of the pit. Those who see you will stare at you and ponder over you. Is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook the kingdoms? So all the people who are considered self-made people, who've taken all these shortcuts and have ascended to popularity and fame, they will be stared upon by others in eternity and say, oh my goodness, look at them. And then he says, you who shook the kingdoms. Is this a man who shook the kingdoms? Ha, ha, ha. And they just laugh at him. Who made the world like a desert? Ha, ha, ha. Who had so much destruction? And they just laugh at him. And overthrew its cities? They just laugh at him. Who did not let his prisoners go home. This is Isaiah 14:13 and following. Now listen to me. Listen very closely. You know all this stuff that's happening in Washington, D.C. right now with all the hearings and everything, and it goes both ways. I'm not pointing my finger at just anybody. That is mild compared to what's getting ready to happen when God calls the world to judgment. And that's coming. And at judgment, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Satan, no. Me, no. You, no. Jesus is Lord. So I'm glad for that little distraction, because see, when Satan distracts you or the world distracts you, if you'll just stop, take a breath, think about what you're talking about, God will redirect you from all the distractions and take you right into heaven. So share this with somebody that is continually distracted or has got to stay busy, 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 busy all the time, and let God bless your soul. Thank you so much. God bless you.